Imagine opening your eyes and realizing you are standing on the wooden deck of a large sailing ship, somewhere in the middle of an endless ocean that stretches in every direction as far as your eyes can see. The air smells strongly of salt and damp wood, and the wind pushes hard against the massive canvas sails above you, causing the tall mast to creak and groan, while ropes swing back and forth like living things. Around you, sailors rush across the deck shouting commands, pulling heavy ropes with rough hand hardened by years at sea, climbing the rigging high above the ship, and constantly adjusting the sails to capture the shifting wind. Waves crash against the hull in a steady rhythm, and the ship rises and falls slowly with the movement of the water beneath it. In that moment, you realize something incredible and slightly terrifying at the same time. You are now a navigator during the age of exploration, a period in history when the oceans were not fully mapped, when entire continents were still unknown to many civilizations, and when every voyage into the open sea carried the possibility of extraordinary discovery or complete disappearance. At first, the experience might feel thrilling, almost romantic in a way. You would likely be departing from a busy port city somewhere in Europe, perhaps along the coast of Portugal or Spain, where ships constantly come and go carrying goods, sailors, merchants, and explorers eager to travel beyond the limits of the known world. The harbor would be full of activity, with workers loading barrels of water, sacks of grain, salted meat, dried fish, ropes, tools, weapons, and navigation instruments onto the ship. Families and friends gather on the docks to say goodbye, knowing very well that many who leave might never return from the ocean. The atmosphere is filled with anticipation and tension because every expedition carries enormous risk. For the men boarding these ships, the ocean represents more than just water. It represents opportunity, wealth, fame, and the possibility of discovering lands no one from their homeland has ever seen before. However, it would not take long for the excitement to be replaced by the harsh reality of life at sea during this era. Ships of the age of exploration were far smaller and less comfortable than modern vessels, built entirely from thick wooden planks held together by iron nails and reinforced beams. As the ship moves through the ocean, the wood constantly creaks and shifts, reminding everyone on board how fragile their floating world truly is. Below the deck, the living space is extremely cramped, dark, and poorly ventilated, with dozens of sailors forced to share the same small areas. Many sleep in simple hammocks tied to wooden beams, swinging gently as the ship moves, while others lie directly on rough planks of wood. Privacy does not exist, and the air inside the ship often becomes thick with the smell of sweat, damp clothes, salt water, and old food stored in barrels for months at a time. Food, which might seem like a small concern at first, quickly becomes one of the most difficult parts of the journey. At the beginning of the voyage, the crew might still have access to relatively decent meals, including salted beef or pork, dried fish, beans, and hard bread known as ship biscuits. Occasionally, there might even be fresh fruits or vegetables taken from the port before departure. But these fresh foods disappear quickly, often within the first weeks at sea. After that, meals become extremely repetitive and unpleasant. The ship biscuits, meant to last for months without spoiling, are often so hard they must be soaked in water before they can be eaten. Over time, they also become filled with insects and larvae, something sailors eventually learn to ignore out of necessity because throwing food away is simply not an option. Water supplies are just as problematic as food. Stored in large wooden barrels deep inside the ship, fresh water gradually loses its quality over time. The taste becomes stale, sometimes even foul, and contamination is always a possibility. Because of this, sailors often drink diluted wine or weak beer instead of plain water, believing it to be safer and less likely to carry disease. Every ration must be carefully measured because the ship might remain far from land for months, and running out of drinking water in the middle of the ocean would be catastrophic. For navigators and captains, calculating supplies becomes a constant concern throughout the entire voyage. Yet perhaps the most dangerous challenge sailors face during these long expeditions is disease. Without modern medical knowledge, many crews suffer from illnesses that slowly weaken and kill them during months at sea. One of the most common and deadly is scurvy, caused by a lack of vitamin C due to the absence of fresh fruits and vegetables. The symptoms begin subtly with tiredness and weakness, but soon gums begin to bleed, teeth loosen and fall out, wounds refuse to heal properly, and the body slowly collapses under the strain. Entire crews have been devastated by scurvy during historic voyages, sometimes losing dozens of men before even reaching their destination. Even if the crew manages to survive hunger and disease, the ocean itself remains the most unpredictable and dangerous force they must face. The sea can appear calm and peaceful for days, with gentle waves and clear skies stretching endlessly overhead. But storms can form quickly and without warning. Dark clouds gather on the horizon, winds grow stronger, and suddenly the ship finds itself surrounded by towering waves that slam against the hull with terrifying power. Sailors rush frantically across the deck, trying to secure ropes and lower sails before the wind tears them apart. Lightning flashes across the sky while thunder shakes the air, and the ship rises and crashes down violently with each massive wave. During these moments, the navigator's role becomes incredibly important and incredibly difficult. Unlike modern sailors who rely on satellite navigation systems and digital maps, navigators of the age of exploration must depend on a combination of simple instruments, careful observation, and experience. Tools such as a compass, astrolabe, and quadrant allow them to estimate the ship's position by measuring the angle of the sun during the day or the stars during the night. However, these calculations are far from perfect. A small mistake in measurement or a few days of cloudy skies preventing observation can easily send a ship far off its intended course. Adding to the difficulty is the fact that maps during this period are incomplete and often inaccurate. Vast regions of the ocean appear as blank spaces on charts, with only rough guesses about coastlines and islands. Navigators often sail toward areas that no one from their country has ever mapped before. Every decision carries risk. The horizon ahead might hide safe harbors and new continents, or dangerous reefs, violent currents, and storms capable of destroying an entire fleet. Despite all these dangers, there is something powerful that keeps sailors and navigators moving forward into the unknown. It is the promise of discovery. During the age of exploration, explorers are driven by the belief that beyond the horizon lie valuable trade routes, new lands filled with resources, and opportunities to expand the influence of their nations. Spices from Asia, gold and silver from distant lands, and new trade connections could transform entire economies back home. For navigators, every successful voyage can mean wealth, fame, and a permanent place in history. Weeks or even months might pass without seeing any land at all. The crew spends day after day staring at the endless blue horizon, guided only by wind and stars. Routine becomes the only thing keeping the crew organized, raising sails, adjusting ropes, cleaning the deck, repairing damage to the ship, and constantly checking the direction of travel. In such isolation, even small events become significant. A change in wind direction, the sight of birds flying overhead, or floating pieces of vegetation in the water can signal that land might be somewhere nearby. Then one day, after a long period of uncertainty, the lookout high in the mast might shout a word that electrifies everyone on board: land. Sailors rush to the edge of the ship, straining their eyes to see the faint outline of mountains or coastline appearing in the distance. After months surrounded only by water, the sight of land feels almost unreal. For navigators and explorers, this moment represents the ultimate reward for their courage and endurance. Standing on the deck as the wind fills the sails and the ship moves steadily toward a new and unfamiliar shore, you would begin to understand what it truly meant to be a navigator during this incredible era of history. You would not simply be traveling across the ocean. You would be helping expand humanity's understanding of the world itself. Every voyage pushes the boundaries of what is known, filling empty spaces on maps and connecting distant parts of the planet in ways that had never happened before. And as the ship continues forward across the vast and mysterious ocean, one truth becomes clear. The life of a navigator is not just about survival on the sea, but about exploring a world that is still waiting to be discovered.